Hey everyone, Sweet Johnny Cage here. Welcome back to the Elden Ring full playthrough walkthrough. Technically this is part 55, but we're going to call this part 1 because this walkthrough is specifically for the DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree. So we'll start over at part 1, but technically part 55 at the full playthrough walkthrough. If you've never joined me for these types of walkthroughs before, or this specific walkthrough in Elden Ring, the way this works is it's a Let's Play style walkthrough. And what I mean by that is that this is unedited. I'm just playing through the game and talking as I do it, and explaining things and guiding you through the game in a more casual fashion. If you're looking for help with a specific boss or a specific puzzle, check the playlists in the description of this video, and then I have guides for basically every single individual boss and all the paintings and everything, so you can check those playlists out if you need help on a specific thing. But if you're looking for an actual guided tour, like a full walkthrough of the DLC area, then you've come to the right place. That's what this playlist is all about. Okay, so I am going to continue with the character that we created during the full playthrough walkthrough. The character's name is Guide. We finish at level 179 with 60 Vigor, 26 Mind, 35 Endurance, 16 Strength, 60 Dex, 9 Intelligence, 8 Faith, and 49 Arcane. So this was a bleed build using the Rivers of Blood at plus 10. I also have a longbow just for, getting enemies out, a brass shield at plus 25, the Briar armor set, Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman, Erdtree's favorite plus 2, Prosthesis Wearer Heirloom, as well as the Winged Sword Insignia, and then 14 flasks at plus 12, Black Knife Teak leveled up to plus 10, and then a flask of Wondrous Physic with a Crimson Crystal tier and an Opaline Bubble tier. Now, with all that said, things are going to change in this character. And the reason for that is because during the full playthrough walkthrough, I didn't spend a lot of time explaining at all, really, the affinity system for weapons in Elden Ring. That affinity system can be found in the Ash of War menu, and we collected a whole ton of wet blades throughout our adventure of the base game, but we never really used them. So if we were to select a weapon that is just a normal weapon, like we can't do this on Rivers of Blood because that has special enchantments on it at the start, but a weapon like the Uchigatana, which is just like a starting weapon or a general weapon that you find in the world, you can change the Ash of War, and each Ash of War has a specific affinity related to it. So, for example, this Ash of War is called Carian Grandeur. This is a magic-based Ash of War, so if we were to equip this, it would turn our Uchigatana into the Magic Uchigatana. And you'll notice that the damage values change, so instead of doing, what do we have, 268 plus 192 damage, we now have 209 plus 18, and then an additional 209 plus 38. So we get even more damage because of our intellect stat, which is only 9 right now, but this comes in bigger handy with stuff like bleed damage. So, because we have a high arcane rating, that means that we're going to get even more damage out of our Uchigatana if we were to use the blood enchantment. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that's the one we're going to use, but we are going to cycle through a lot of these enchantments throughout the DLC because certain enemies are weak to certain elements. Probably the number one thing that we're going to be using most of the time is Sacred Blade, which oddly enough I didn't get on this character, and you get it very early on in Limgrave, so I'm going to go grab that before we actually go into the DLC, but I did want to point it out right now that we are going to be using the Ash of War and Affinity system way more with this character in the DLC than we did in the base game, which we actually never even touched in the base game. So just familiarize yourself with this menu. I'll explain it as we go and as we continue to play, but that's sort of the idea. Okay, so I am going to level up this Uchigatana to plus 25 before we leave, but the other thing that I want to mention is how to get into the DLC. So in order to access the DLC, first you have to buy it, obviously, but then you need to have killed 2 specific demigods. You needed to have killed Star Scourge Radahn out here in the Caelid Wilds, and then you also need to have killed Mohg, Lord of Blood, and that is actually where the entrance to the DLC is. It's at the Cocoon of the Empyrean. And after you purchase the DLC, an NPC will appear there. I'm not actually sure if they appear without purchasing, but you can't just access the DLC. Excuse me. Sorry about that. But you need to have purchased it in order to get in, so I'd be surprised if that NPC shows up anyway. So you need to have killed those 2 demigods, and of course you're going to kill more demigods along the way, but those are the requirements to get in. Again, excuse me, I have some sort of crumb in my throat. Ooh, okay. So, let us go now to Blacksmith Hugh. And then let's level up our Yuji Katana to plus 25. The DLC is really, really tough. I cannot stress that enough to you. It is very difficult. It has been patched to make the leveling system within the DLC a little bit more forgiving, but it's still quite difficult. I don't think it's prohibitively difficult or anything like that, but it's tough, and I'm going to explain why once we get there. So when you're ready to go, bring up your map, and then warp to the Cocoon of the Empyrean. I love that on PlayStation 5 they still have not added tooltips to the loading screen. Love it. Okay, so you'll notice now that this area is a sanctuary after you've killed Mohg. And then we can speak to this NPC.
Were you guided here by kindly Miquella? I am Leda. And like you, I was guided by faith along his honorable path. Touch the withered arm, and you too will be transported to the realm of shadow where Miquella the Kind now dwells. My compatriots are there already. Like us, they have heard kindly Miquella's call. If you can find them, they are certain to lend you aid. Come now, touch the withered arm, and travel to the realm of shadow. I will not be far behind. May we meet again.
All right, so this is Needle Knight Leda, and we will see her throughout the DLC. But once you're ready, you want to touch the withered arm and head to the realm of shadow. Okay, so inside that egg is the Empyrean Miquella. We discussed him at length during the walkthrough, but we are now going to go to this other world, and if you open up the map, you see that it's quite small, and we have a destination of a map stele over here, so let's mark that, and we'll head in that direction. So, the Realm of Shadow is technically part of the Lands Between, but somehow separated. It's a little unclear, but this is Gravesite Plain, and that is the Scadutree. So, according to somebody who left a comment on a video earlier today, I want to specifically shout them out because I think it's such a cool tidbit. FK Buki said that Scadu is pronounced in Old English as shadow. So Jeremy Roman left that comment earlier today, and I thought that was so interesting. So this is actually the Shadow Tree, which makes a lot of sense because the DLC is called Shadow of the Erdtree. But our first site of grace is right here, and this is Gravesite Plain. Now you're going to notice quite a few things on Gravesite Plain right off the jump here. So we've got somebody testing out moves there, which is kind of nice, but you have this gigantic mountain. You have this gigantic pillar. We have our marker for the site of grace. You have these ruins over here. And then this guy, the big fiery dude, that is called a furnace golem. Furnace golems are sort of world bosses. They are the Land of Shadows version of like Erdtree avatars. And what I mean by that is there's quite a few of them. They all are more or less fought the same way with the exception of two. But most importantly, they drop tears for your Flask of Wondrous Physics. So whenever you see one, you want to kill it. They are hard. They deal a lot of damage, but they actually die relatively easily. You just have to sort of chop at their legs, and then they'll fall down, and you get a critical and deal like 30,000 damage. You do that twice, and they're dead. So they're not that hard. They're just very imposing and can deal a lot of damage from far away. Okay, so like I said, our first destination is going to be the map stele to get our first map fragment. And hello, we have our first enemy. So these guys are ascetics, and an ascetic is a monk who, you know, just sort of like living a miserable life, more or less. But these guys can block with their backblades, and we will find our own backblade in a little while. But the backblades are a new type of weapon in the DLC. Watch out for that grab. The backblades are a new type of weapon in the DLC, and I've only found 3 of them, so I'm not 100% sure if there's more than 3, but they're a new weapon type, and basically they allow you to very quickly get behind your opponent and go in for backstab. So they're really, really good weapons, and they're quite interesting and cool. All right, so let's just remove the marker really fast by running over it. And then let's pick up our first map fragment for Gravesite Plain. So now we have access to the Gravesite Plain map, and you'll notice that we've only uncovered like a small portion of the map, and that's because the map in the DLC works the same as it does in the base game, where it's a lot bigger than it first appears, so get ready. Okay, so here we are. This is our first site of grace. Let's make the Scorched Ruins our first destination. So sometimes you'll come across these ruins, and these ruins always have an interesting item in them. Not necessarily like, game-changing loot or anything like that, but typically you'll find what's called a Scadutree Fragment or a Scadutree Fragment. And Scadutree Fragments, when we pick one up, are basically the DLC's leveling system. So the DLC has this unique leveling system where your base stats do carry over from your character from the base game. However, the DLC kind of doesn't care how strong you are. And that's because the DLC's leveling system is upgraded, or you gain levels via Scadutree Fragments and Revered Spirit Ash. So Revered Spirit Ash increases like the basically torrents health pool, makes it so you take less damage, but more importantly, the Scadutree Fragments increase the damage you deal and decrease the damage you take. And by the end of the game, when you reach Scadutree Blessing level 20, you're basically dealing twice as much damage and taking half as much damage from everything. So your base stats still matter, but you can't just have a level 700 character come into the DLC and expect to stomp everything. It does not work that way. You have to find those Scadutree Fragments. Recently, there was a micro patch to the game, version 1.12.2, and that changed the scaling curve of the Scadutree Fragments. So it basically makes them more important early on. The earlier Scadutree Blessing levels are more important and give you more stats at once. And then the back half is sort of leveled out, but they did buff it overall for, I think, an extra 5% damage reduction in damage dealing. So they did buff it, but they also altered the scale at which you get the buffs, which is very helpful. Okay, so we picked up two things here. We picked up, one, the Greater Potentate's Cookbook, but then we also picked up a Hefty Cracked Pot. So, also new with the DLC, although this will be in the base game as well, is this new Recent Items menu. This is incredibly helpful for when you pick up new items. It's so helpful. You no longer have to go searching for things. They just appear here, and it's so nice. So the Hefty Empty Pot somehow mends itself when broken, essential vessel for crafting Hefty Cracked Pot items. The materials and magic sealed within deploy their effects when the pot is thrown. The Greater Potentates of Bonnie Village craft these and store them in a frozen jail. And then we also got the Greater Potentate's Cookbook, which teaches us how to craft Hefty Fire Pot. This is really important. Hefty Pots are basically like a new version of pots in the DLC. You can use them in the base game. Everything you get in the DLC, aside from the Scadutree Blessings, you can use in the base game. But these pots are incredibly important for those furnace golems because it allows you to kill them really fast. That said, however, the ones that are standing up that you have to knock down, you really don't get an opportunity to use pots on, and that critical hit is always better to do. But there are furnace golems later on that you cannot chop down, and you've got to go to high cliffs and then throw pots into the furnace, and then they will die. So getting that Hefty Crack Pot and the other 9 Hefty Crack Pots in the game is really, really important, and finding those cookbooks is really important as well. There are a ton of cookbooks in the DLC. Okay, so let's come over here, and then we'll loot these butterflies. These are black pyreflies. Those are very important, also used for crafting all the time. That's another thing that we're going to do a little bit differently in the DLC, is we are going to craft more than we ever have, especially with the pots. So we're going to play this a little bit differently. We've played the base game on this character, not necessarily raw, like we did summon, we did do some things, but we really didn't rely on that Ash of War system. I really didn't craft that much, except for maybe some preserving boluses. We really didn't go that crazy. So we're going to play this character a little bit differently, but the DLC really does demand that you have like a more well-rounded understanding and mastery of the game. Okay, so these shadow enemies can be a little difficult to spot most of the time, and you'll notice that all they did was throw rocks at me, and I'm already at half health. So they deal quite a lot of damage without you having any Scadutree Fragments. So yeah. All right, so coming up here, we can open this door just like this person. And then inside will be a treasure chest for us. We get the Blade of Mercy. No, this isn't Bloodborne, it's a talisman. This is a thin, blood-stained dagger, no longer fit for use. Raises attack power after each critical hit. Hornsent employed this to honorably end the suffering of a compatriot. After claiming numerous lives, the dagger is now broken, but has acquired a spectral aura. So, it raises attack power for each critical hit. So, if you are somebody who has a crit build, that's a really good talisman for you. And we can grab this item. Mushroom. A lot of mushrooms in the DLC. Okay, great. So we're basically done with Scorched Ruins. There's never like a boss here or anything. It's really just here for items. Oh, we actually forgot this item up here. Oh, I didn't think we would land there. There's definitely a more... Okay, yeah, we got to go around. Hop up here, hop up here, hop up here. Oh, is that item too on the roof? There is sort of like a brown color to everything in the DLC. It makes sense, you know, the tree is brown and it appears to be a light source, just like the Erdtree and the lands between, but boy, is it frustrating to look at sometimes. Even through here? Nope. Okay, we have to do like a double jump scenario with Torrent to get in there. All right. I'm sure this item is like a butterfly. I'm sure it's nothing. I can't believe they make you do these things. I knew that it was a butterfly. I knew it. I'm psychic. I probably could have just jumped in from here, couldn't I have? No, it looks a little high. Okay, great. So now that we're done with the Scorched Ruins, we have a choice. We can... Oh, hello. We can go forward and attempt to bring down that Furnace Golem. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this Site of Grace, and then we're actually going to backtrack a little bit. So we're going to get this Site of Grace. The Furnace Golem starts moving, which is great. But now we're actually going to go backwards. And we're going to come over here to this graveyard. Follow this road. And the reason for this is because there is an enemy over here that we need to kill. So if you look closely, where my helmet point is, there is an enemy that appears to be shimmering and it has a pot on its head. Whenever you see these enemies, you need to rush them and kill them. They will disappear, kind of like Crystal Scarabs can sometimes. And speaking of Crystal Scarabs, I just realized that I never went to go get Sacred Blade. That's okay. Okay, so when we killed that enemy, it dropped this item here. This is a Scadutree Fragment, what I was talking about before. So, Scadutree Blessings, let's read this. Scadutree Fragments can be found across the Realm of Shadow. Consume these at Sites of Grace to bolster your Scadutree Blessing. The Scadutree Blessing bolsters the recipient's abilities to deal and negate damage, but has no influence outside the Realm of Shadow. So again, the more Scadutree Fragments that you spend, the less damage you will take, and the more that you will receive. Sorry, the less damage that you will deal. Sorry, the less damage you will receive, and the more damage you will deal. So it's a buff across the board. There are charts online that actually explain the full percentages and everything. We're not going to get into that, but just know there are a finite number of Scadutree Blessings, and the max level is 20. So you want to find them all and collect them all like Pokemon. All right, great. So whenever you see those shining pot enemies, rush them and kill them because they will disappear. Okay, so now we're going to backtrack a little bit more. We're going to come over here. And then the other part of the leveling system will get introduced to us over here. Okay, so we see this statue over here. And we want to loot this item. This is a Revered Spirit Ash Blessing. Revered Spirit Ash can be found across the Realm of Shadow. Consume this ash at Sites of Grace to bolster your Revered Spirit Ash Blessing. The Revered Spirit Ash Blessing bolsters both summoned spirits and spectral steeds' abilities to deal and negate damage, but has no influence outside the realm of shadow. So basically, it increases the damage that your summoned spirit ashes deal, reduces the amount of damage that they take, and it also reduces the amount of damage that Torrent takes. I'm not sure if they've changed this since the micro patch, but Torrent takes a ton of damage in the DLC. You are going to get knocked off Torrent constantly. It's actually kind of annoying, but just be aware that's how it is. I hope one day they nerf it because it feels kind of honestly absurd. Okay, so now our next destination is actually going to be down here. So again, we're backtracking along this road, and that's our ultimate destination. But somewhere around here, we'll call it Marker 2, somewhere around here, there's an NPC roaming the woods, and that NPC's name is Logur, and he fights with claws, so he's legally distinct Wolverine, and we want to kill him for those claws. We're not necessarily going to use them, but it is a really good weapon to bring through the DLC if you want to do a claw build. All right, so we're going to come down here, and then we're going to drop into these woods and start looking for Logur. There are birds here that scream, so, you know, if you're like me, you're going to jump every time you hear them. There's one. And so Logur should be around here somewhere. He's going to jump me. I know it. Huh. He might be further up. He's definitely in these woods. I know that for a fact. Where is he at? Is he just like way further up than I thought? This is really weird. This is the entrance to the DLC, right? He's in these woods. This is kind of strange. Where is this guy? There he is. He's got a big wandering path. So this is Logur the Beast Claw. So, you know, just your typical NPC fight. Weak to bleed because he has no armor. He's just roaming around the woods naked. Just be careful because he can jump over you. Oh, God, that bleed damage. So there, he only hit me like 4 times, and he almost completely destroyed me. And mind you, I have 60 vigor, so I'm basically at max health. I'm not really dealing too much damage to him. But that bleed proc, baby. And the camera is going ballistic. Cool. So that's Logur, the Beast Claw, legally distinct Wolverine. Oops. Yeah, regaining flask counts as inventory items. So the Beast Claw is a weapon in the form of a carnivorous beast's vicious claws, used to perform bestial slashing attacks uncanny to humankind, an imitation of the esoteric technique of the Horned Warriors. Those who carry this weapon wield it as though they have been possessed by a savage beast. So these are new claw-type weapons. Claw-type weapons scale with strength and dex most of the time. quite a few claw weapons in the game that you can choose from. So basically it's a melee weapon. If you two-hand, you get 2 of them. And then you get these jumping attacks. Savage Claws is sort of like that. It's a big swiping attack. They don't deal like a ton of damage on their own. They're really just there for the bleed proc, and it just stacks so quickly. So it's a really fun build if you want to do it. All right, so let's go to our next destination, which is this church down here. Now that we've killed not Logan. And this church is going to be somewhat heavily guarded, but we can kite out the main enemy that we got to deal with. And luckily, he's a kill once enemy. Hello? Thank you. All right, so as you approach, you're going to see a dog or two. They are on fire. There's quite a lot of fire things in the Realm of Shadow. And that's because of Mesmer the Impaler and his crusade. So even though these guys are just sleeping, I recommend killing them because you don't want them to bother you while you're fighting the main dude here, which is this guy. So there is a Black Knight in this church. There are also soldiers in the church, so I don't recommend fighting inside of the church. Get him to come out if you can. Great. So he's got a great hammer that he one-hands. Believe it or not, his attacks are really similar to Radigan. So if you are still familiar with that fight, then it's pretty similar. And then he also has a shield slam attack, as well as another shield attack that you just saw there, where he sort of like puts it in the ground and shoves it at you. That is really similar to Elemer of the Briar and the Bell-Bearing Knights. So whenever he slams into the ground, you can just run up behind him and get yourself a backstab. Great, so that is that Black Knight, and you get the Black Steel Great Hammer. Description on that reads, Weapon of the Black Knight, Servants of Mesmer the Impaler. Great Hammer of black steel with decorative embellishments in gold. Blessed with an Erdtree incantation, further holy imbuement will amplify the effect and greatly increase the armament's power. Guard counters cause a burst of power. So really good guard counter attack. And you saw there that it was blessed with the Erdtree. And we will come to find out that the crusade that Mesmer went on was actually at the behest of Marika. So the folks in the Realm of Shadow are not a fan of either Mesmer or Marika or the Erdtree, which is why the vast majority of Marika statues here have her head cut off. They're not fans. Okay, so we get another Scadutree Fragment here, which is very nice. We want to keep collecting those as best we can. We're also going to come over here, kill this dog, and then deal with the enemies in the camp. What I recommend doing is actually rushing the dog because you really don't want to... Oh, I messed up. Nope, he's dead. Great. So even though he's blowing the Vuvuzela, we can still kill these enemies. Oh, God. All right. Yep, watch out for that. The lack of Scadutree Fragments on this character is terrifying. I beat the game at level 19 of 20. Or beat the DLC at level of 19 of 20, so I am not used to not having high Scadutree level. Okay. Cool. So, go ahead and loot this place. I know the butterflies seem pointless, but they are actually very useful for crafting. Cool, we get a fire coil, which is another crafting... Actually, no, is that a consumable? Yeah, so... Oh, I don't have any FP, but that's a consumable to conjure a fire snake, which is pretty neat. And then there's nothing behind this particular waterfall, but there is a cave that we want to go into with a couple of enemies. Right here. Groovy. Okay, and then pick this up for a Blessing of Marika. So these are basically like divine blessings. You can only carry one at a time, but they restore your HP and heals all ailments. So there's a few of these in the game, but you can only carry one at a time, just like divine blessings in Dark Souls. Okay, so that's really it for this area. However, one of the main reasons I wanted to come over here was to show you the world. The Realm of Shadow is very densely packed, and what I mean by that is we don't have a second map fragment yet, so we really can't, like, tell, but this is Jagged Peak. This is like a whole zone. You can notice that bridge in the distance over there connecting those two foothills. But then if you look closely, directly underneath us, there's another area. And it's that area with the trees. And then we have a furnace golem over here, and then this whole red zone. If you were to... Again, we don't have the map fragment, but when you get the second map fragment from the southern shore, at least that's the one I recommend you get second, you're going to very quickly realize that the map of the Realm of Shadow really doesn't illustrate topography very well. And what I mean by that is, like, over here, right, this green area is at the top of a mountain, but the bottom of that mountain is also very explorable. So, like, this ruin right here and this mountainous area are basically part of the same map fragment and part of the same map. They're just at different elevations. And so it's very hard to tell, like, where you want to go or how to get to where you want to go just by looking at the map. It's quite confusing. I actually have an hour-long video explaining how to get to each region of the map because of how difficult it is to read it. So just wanted to illustrate this to you. It's nice that you can see a furnace golem that indicates, hey, I should be able to go there at some point, and you can, but it is not easy to get to, or as easy as you might think. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to warp back to Gravesite Plain, and what I'm going to do very quickly is I'm going to go get Sacred Blade. I should just warp to the First Church of Marika, or the 10th Church of Marika. You press R1 to go back to the Lands Between and vice versa. So let's go to the 3rd Church of Marika, and let's go grab Sacred Blade from a nearby scarab. It's literally right up this hill. I can't believe I didn't get this during the walkthrough. Especially the fact that I used a Yuchi Katana the entire time. So just kill this scarab. Sacred Blade. Look at that. Okay, let's go back to the Realm of Shadow, and then let's warp to Gravesite Plain. So our next destination is to go kill the first boss that's available to us, and that is inside of a mausoleum. So mausoleums in this game, or in this realm, are sort of like Everjails, where it's just you go in, you fight a boss, and you're done. There's really nothing else there. There's 4 mausoleums total. There's one in the north, south, east, and west. This one is the west that we're going to encounter first, so we'll go take care of that. Before we do that, let's go ahead and go to the Ashes of War, and then go to our Yuchi Katana plus 25. Put Sacred Blade on it. Sacred Blade, there we go. Make it sacred, and now that scales with Faith, which we don't really have a high Faith rating, but it does give us Sacred, which allows us to kill undead enemies a lot faster. And then let's also level up both our Scadutree Blessing as well as our Revered Spirit Ash Blessing. Very good. Okay, so we're going to follow this sort of western ridge here into this graveyard, and we're eventually going to come across the Mausoleum. I really do love how the time of day changes in the Realm of Shadow. It just looks so cool. All right, so we've got these like lesser death birds here. Kill them. They are sort of all on these trees and on top of the graves here, so just be careful. Okay, so we're going to come out here. And we're going to go into the Western Nameless Mausoleum. So this is just a boss fight with a soldier. He's got a lot of health, high armor, but he also drops his armor, and his armor is fantastic. So this is the Blackgaol Knight. He has a repeating crossbow with perfumer bolts, so just be aware of that. Whenever you see him sort of load that up, just know that big damage is coming. If he's ever two-handing his sword, you're going to have a hard time breaking his stance or breaking his poise, so you got to be careful of that as well. He can bleed, but he just has high armor, so he has high bleed resist. His Ash of War is sort of that curved beam you saw there. Yeah, like I said, you really can't break his poise when he's two-handing his sword. So for this move here, you just sidestep, no big deal, and then you can kind of just go right back in on him. Watch out for his jump attacks. Oof. Wow. Yeah. And because our Scadutree Blessing is so low, we really don't have the ability to, like, do any serious blocking. Hello. Thank you. Yeah, one hit and I'm already half health. That's just so much fun. Oh, boy. Yep, he heals. Go back in. Jump attacks are effective, but again, if he's two-handing it, that gets harder. He is susceptible to backstabs, but he can spin around really quick, so you gotta be careful. Shouldn't have gone in. His follow-up is pretty deadly. Hello? I just wanted to give him a chance. His AI died. Ow. Okay, yeah, you can't drink, but I can. You're out of flasks. He only gets one. Damn. I didn't even press R1 there. Oh, goodness. Double pump. Okay. This is still doable. Back up. I'm trying to bait out at least one attack here. So I can heal. Perfect. Oh, God. Wow, that was almost god-awful terrible. Got him. Okay, that's the Blackgaol Knight. Again, your Scadutree Blessing is so low at this point in the game that everything is able to kill you in 2 hits, which I actually think is kind of nice because, again, it makes it so you can't just bring this level 715 character, max level, all stats 99, and have an easy go of it. It'll certainly help, but it's not going to make an insane amount of difference that you can just bulldoze the entire DLC. You can also challenge yourself by not spending any of the Scadutree Fragments or the Revered Spirit Tree Blessings. Okay, so we got the Greatsword of Solitude as well as the Solitude set. Greatsword of Solitude says, Steel Greatsword wielded by the Knights of the Solitary Jail. Through a secret rite, they relinquished their hearts for heightened battle prowess. Next, they engrave their blades with 2 crests, one depicting the light of birth and the other solitude. The Helm of Solitude says, Steel Helm of the Knights of the Solitary Jail, part of a heavy armor set that covers the whole body in overlapping plates of steel. The nameless mausoleums of the Realm of Shadow are set to hold the spirits of warriors who lost their names or their hearts. And basically the description is more or less the same throughout. So this armor is very heavy, but it does offer incredible resistances and has a really good armor rating or physical damage rating. So what I actually recommend doing is beefing up your endurance rating and using this set if you find that you're taking a ton of damage or getting a ton of status elements inflicted on you as you play. It's a really good armor set, and it's available right at the start. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's go back to the Scorched Ruins, and now let's take down that Furnace Golem. So the weapon you're using really doesn't matter too much. A strength weapon will certainly help, but it's not going to matter that much. I'm actually going to very quickly craft a Hefty fire pot just to see if this does do any damage while we are working on it. If we could just dump this right into the furnace when it falls. I've never actually tried this specific, or a pot on this specific golem. All right, so you can kick up rocks at us. See, Torn just took 3/4 of its health. Whenever it lifts up its leg, it's going to stomp. All you got to do is double jump over the stomp, and that's it. He can stomp twice. He can also jump. The jump you got to really run away from, but other than that, just keep hacking away. Just make sure you have enough stamina for double jump. I didn't. Imagine that. So you can also just jump yourself. The fire lasts longer than the actual hitbox does, so you don't have to worry too much about it. So we need to stun the boss 3 times, and you'll see it's like not even technically a boss, but I call it a boss because it's huge. And it drops important items. So that's 1 stun. It's not going to drop. Ow. Okay. Stay behind the boss. I can't believe I just got hit by that. Oh my goodness. Can't even summon Torrent. Okay, good. So just rinse and repeat here. Just pay attention whenever the legs go on fire. If both of them go on fire at the same time, that means the boss is going to jump. And that is a little harder to deal with, but we're okay. So you don't want to stray too far from the boss because there are a lot of enemies in this region that would love to interrupt you and mess your day up. I'm being very careful of my stamina management right now. I don't want to be in another situation where I can't double jump. So that's the second stun. Let's keep going. So somebody also mentioned in my comments that you can tell if he's going to do a double stomp by the height at which he lifts his legs up to. So this is a jump. We are running away from this. Reason for that is because it also launches fire. It's not just putting fire on the ground. It launches fire all over the place, and you want to do your best to avoid that. All right, so that's a full stun. That's the third one. Now what we're doing is we're just running around looking for the mask that's glowing, and then we get a critical, and this will deal about 30k. 37k. And you see there, it's now... Oh, I forgot to use the pot. Oh, well, not a big deal. I'll use it on the next go-around. So now we literally just rinse and repeat, just do it again. He does not gain any new moves, nothing happens. You just keep going. Luckily, this is a kill once enemy. All Furnace Golems are kill once, so you just gotta kill them one time, and then they never come back. And that's because they drop good rewards. And this one's reward is quite special. It's always a tier, but sometimes the tier is pretty unique. I'm really trying to stay behind this guy. All right, that's the first stun. You gotta do 3 times again. It's not just once you get it 3 times, you're good. Got lucky on that one. I'm not sure if the second stun like goes faster. It's weird that we got 2 there, but doesn't really matter. Just keep employing the same exact strategy. Eventually, it'll fall. Damn. I'm letting my stamina recover here. So we're running away, trying to get as far away as we can. Damn. That didn't work out. Hopefully it doesn't claw us to death. Okay, we're good. Yeah, that's right. We're behind him. Keep staying behind him. Ugh. No, don't Hefty Fire Pont. Okay, that should be 3. I'm going to try the pot now. See what happens. Nope. Okay, it's just the other ones. No big deal. Go for the mask, and it'll go down. Great. Okay, so that is your first Furnace Golem. Again, not terribly hard, you know, not too crazy. So we got the Deflecting Hardtear, which is a really interesting item. It says a crystal tear forms slowly over the ages where the scattered sap of the Scadutree pulls deep within the Furnace Golems. Can be mixed in the Flask of Wondrous Physic. The resulting concoction temporarily enhances Spontaneous Guard. Damage negation and guard poise will be heightened in the moment immediately after assuming a guard stance. Successfully executing a spontaneous guard will also strengthen guard counters. So, this tier allows you to parry like it's Sekiro. I'm not kidding. It gives you a 5-minute buff where you're able to parry like you're playing Sekiro, which is really, really cool. Okay, so our next destination is going to be a grave over here that has a weapon on it. And this is the first backblade weapon. So come over to these pillars. And then you have these aged ones here, so feel free to kill them. They won't really harass you too much. This is a pack of 3, so they may give you a little bit of trouble, but... Pack of 5? Okay. They all sort of blended together. Great, so you loot this. and you get the Backhand blade. So, if we read this, it's a backhand blade, curved blade wielded with a backhand grip, a type of weapon wielded by Hornsent for generations. The style of combat associated with this weapon is marked by spinning slashes and gouging thrust attacks. So, we can equip it and see what it does. Whoops, hello. Press the wrong button there. Alright, backhand blade. So, you can see, you kind of hold it backwards, and then you do these backward slashes and spins. But if you two-hand it, now you get two of them, and your moveset is even crazier. And then Blind Spot allows you to rush your enemy. So if you press L2 and hold a direction, you will go in that direction. So everything is controlled by the stick. It's a really, really cool set of weapons. I don't particularly use them, but they're very cool. All right, great. So our next destination is going to be this crossroads right here. And at the crossroads, which is in front of this big imposing gate, there's going to be a cross of Miquella, which you can see in the distance right there next to that big tree. We're going to meet some of the DLC's first NPCs. And let's kill this death bird just because I know he's going to try to bother us. Great. All right. Let's clear the marker really fast, and you can see a couple of folks sitting here. So at Miquella's crosses, which are scattered throughout the world, there will always be at least one Scadutree Fragment for you to get, and then sometimes you find Empyrean Blood Burgeon, which is a young shoot meaning like a stick, heavy with Empyrean blood, material used for crafting items, exceedingly rare to find, said to burgeon forth from where the golden blood of Miquella, the wounded Empyrean, pooled. So basically, these crosses symbolize where Miquella began stripping himself of his fleshly form. Carved words coalesce, I abandon here the first of the flesh of my body. So that's why you're always going to find these Empyrean blood burgeons growing around these crosses. So let's speak with this guy over here first. Going to turn up the volume for you.
Fie, another. Treading the heels of Miquella. Then, as that woman would surely say, we are in our purposes well aligned. But understand, your kind are not forgiven. The Erdtree is my people's enemy. By Marika long betrayed, set aflame. I believe Miquella's apologies when he says our delivery will come, but never will I see your kind as worthy. And yet my oath I cannot overlook. If Miquella it is whom you would seek, then comrade, allow me to give you this. These are the sites of the crosses I found. I urge you, follow after Miquella. As long as you abide by his footfalls, you will be no enemy to me. I urge you, as long as you...
Now let's also talk to this woman over here.
Ah, Lady Leda spoke of you. You're that tarnished. Guided here by kindly Miquella. Won't we all? I am Freyja. I once fought alongside General Radahn. In battle, you can be sure I'll hold my own. Oh, another thing. Did you speak to our dour little friend? If you've yet to do so, have him give you a map of the Cross's whereabouts. You'll find more of them dotted about these lands. They are Miquella the Kind's footprints. If you've yet to do so, assuming you would...
Okay. So, these two NPCs are Freyja and the Hornsent. So, these two NPCs, I find it really funny that they have Irish voice actors, or at least people doing Irish accents following a cross, because as somebody who was raised Irish Catholic, like, I just find that very funny. But these two NPCs are following Miquella, and we're going to run into them throughout our journey. I believe Hornsent can be summoned. He can definitely be summoned for a boss later on. Freyja can actually be summoned for the first major story boss, which is in an a legacy dungeon through this archway, which we're going to go toward as the last part of this walkthrough. So, important NPCs, they're on the trail of Miquella, and as long as you don't cross them, and as long as you stay on the path of Miquella, and finding the crosses, they will be your allies. So very important to keep that in mind, that as long as you do that, they will be your allies. I do want to say kind of right away that NPC questlines in the Realm of Shadow are very interesting and have a lot to do with Miquella. Everything to do with Miquella. So more on that later, but there's a point in the DLC, an actual spot on the ground where if you cross an invisible line, something happens and the NPCs will begin to turn against each other and against you. So keep that in mind. I will point it out when we get there. So even though we're level 179, you still want to be spending runes as you get them. I finished my first playthrough of this DLC at level 202, so there's still plenty to build into. And as you can see, under attack power, those are our Scadutree Blessing level. So those stats are now gold. When you go back to the Lands Between or the base game, it goes back to white and you lose those benefits. So it is just there for the purpose of the DLC. So I am going to use the Deflecting Hardtear because I actually have not personally tried out that deflect mechanic. All right, so let's go through here. And this is going to be, we're going to do some stuff up on a cliff, and then that's going to be it for part 1 of this walkthrough, and then part 2 we're going to explore more or less the remainder of Gravesite Plain and do our first catacomb. But up here we have yet another Cross of Miquella, so let's go ahead and go up there. And if we had looked at the map that Hornsent gave us, we would see it. So if we were to open that now, you can see that across the bridge there's one, and then closer through that archway, that's this one. So we have another Site of Grace and then another couple of NPCs. Don't forget the Scadutree Fragment. Activate the Site of Grace. And then I think we could probably spend the last 2 that we just got. Sure can. All right, so I'm going to raise the volume and we'll talk to these NPCs here who are also quite important.
You must be the Tarnished. I am Ansbach. Formerly in service to Lord Moog, but now, like you, another soul guided by kindly Miquella. I'm hardly the steady hand I once was. My fighting days are far behind me, which is why I have chosen to dedicate myself to investigation, to discern tender Miquella's ultimate purpose. I'd rather not volunteer service to a new master unless I know that I can be of use. May I request a service of you? 6 crosses identical to this one have been discovered in these lands. They are akin to tender Miquella's footprints, or gravestones, which mark what he's left behind. If you discover any more crosses, be certain to tell me. I presume you, too, are keen to know just what kind Miquella is doing here. If you discover, be certain to tell. I presume.
Hello there. Together, we work. Together, for Miquella the Kind. Many things we have found.
Really important to purchase this note.
I like finding things. For you, Lady Leda, her allies, and the Forager brood. Things bring joy to all. I like for you, things.
Okay, so this is Moore and Sir Ansbach. Moore will always stay here up until a certain point in the game. Again, when you reach that sort of proximity, things change. I'll point that out when we're there. But Moore will stay here. His inventory does expand the more you do in the game, so feel free to keep checking in on him, and he also has his own story as well. Okay, so Sir Ansbach, we won't see him again for a while. He appears in a place called the Specimen Storehouse doing some research, and we'll talk to him again when we reach that place. Okay, so up this big old staircase, this is the first legacy dungeon of the game called Belurat Tower Settlement. We are not going to start this legacy dungeon for a little while, and the reason for that is because the boss at the end of this legacy dungeon is a doozy, and I want to have our Scadutree Blessing up to maybe 4 or 5 before we really challenge him. So what we're going to do instead is we are going to make this area our next destination. Like right here, this sort of cave opening on the map And you're about to see why this map is kind of useless. But if we were to travel along here, we can actually follow these gravestones up a ridge. All right, and you want to be careful because there will be bats around. Yeah, I was waiting for this dog. Okay, great. These shadow enemies can deal a lot of damage early on, so you don't want to be presumptive and assume that they're just, oh god, dreglings and won't do anything to you. I also just aggro another dog. Hello. Oh boy. Alright, whatever. Cool. Get our level 3 smithing stone. There are a ton of smithing stones in this DLC. You are encouraged to continue leveling up weapons, start new builds, respec, use the new weapons that you're finding, and so on. Okay, so you see here that, like, this area, we're actually underneath this. And so we're going to come out of the opening here. And so, like, checking the map is always very important, but looking at the map and determining how to get somewhere really isn't going to work most of the time. It can be done. It can certainly be done, and it is a helpful reference, but it's not like a one-to-one guide, kind of like it was in the Lands Between. This map is very densely packed. All right, so we got this site of grace here at the Cliff Road Terminus. Let's go ahead and remove our marker. And now we've got a couple of things to do. So I think the first major thing we should do is explore this ruin here. But before we do that, there's going to be a statue over here that I want us to go... Sorry, not over there. It's going to be over here. My bad. That I want us to go grab because it's going to have a Revered Spirit Ash blessing on it. These guys are blood fiends. They can... they're sort of like ogres, but they also can stack bleed very, very quickly using their snot. And I'm not kidding. They literally sneeze on you. And it comes out in a blood mist, and it's gross, but is what it is. Okie doke. So go ahead and grab this Revered Spirit Ash. And then let's start making our way over to the ruins. All right. Okay, good. I'm actually really glad this is here. So let me kill these enemies, and I'll tell you what I'm talking about. Yeah, I know. Big man. Okay, so if you look closely, this gravesite is glowing. And in the middle of it is a larval tier. So you can reset your stats here. I believe the larval tiers in this region, in the realm of Shadow, are actually used to reset your Scadutree blessing, and not necessarily your whole stats. I've never actually used one, but I've noticed that they only appear in those glowing graves. I'm not sure if I had ever found another one. I'm also not sure if they only appear at night. Like, I know the graves only glow at night, but I'm not sure if the larval tiers are only there at night, or if they're just indicated at night. Okay, so for these ruins... Oh, we actually got to go the other way. For these ruins, there's quite a large number of blood fiends here, so we do have to be quite careful as we go through. Luckily, as you've seen, blood fiends don't really have a high poise rating, and so you can kind of chew through them with relative ease, but they come in big packs, especially in this area. The ones with the pitchforks, they will sometimes drop their weapon, but the ones with the pitchforks are sort of like blood mages, and they can do some AoE buffing to their compatriots, so you gotta be careful. Let's come up here, ride up this ruin. If there's one tip that I could give you if you're trying to, like, I understand, like, you're using a walkthrough for this, and I'm always very happy to provide and, you know, give folks help where they need it. But I actually suggest playing this offline until maybe you want to summon somebody. And the reason for that is because player messages tend to give away a lot of surprises in the DLC. I actually turned them off after a couple of hours just because it got so frustrating. Like, every time I was near an open doorway, I would see a hint, and I knew that, I knew that there was an enemy lurking around the corner or something. So it can get a little frustrating. Anyway, We're going to come up here, and we avoided all those blood fiends as we were going along. But now we get the Outer God Heirloom, which is always an exciting name to hear. Talisman engraved with the lore of an outer god. It raises our arcane. The clan who lost everything in the Great Fires peered upon the corpse of their ancestor, normally an act of sanctity, and saw in its shadow a twisted deity. The clan had suffered such torment that the horrible thing was taken as an object of worship. So it increases our arcane stat, which was the one talisman, I think just the one talisman missing from the base game. Okay. Gonna equip our lamp here because it is dark. And again, the Realm of Shadow gets very dark. Okay, so we've aggroed a couple of these guys, which is fine. I'm gonna attempt to get a backstab. Okay, we got it. You can see there, they got the pitchfork. He's got the blood magic, so you gotta be careful. But luckily, it's just a couple of them. Jesus. Luckily, it's just a couple of them. That's not good. Oh boy. Oh, you're angry, I know. Great, that's one. Blood Mage is still doing his thing. That's two. Perfect. Okay, so that's the first pack. Now we've got this pack. Funny enough, these guys are just sort of like munching on this dude. Like they're eating this guy. I don't really understand what's happening because he's not dead. Like I really don't understand what's happening here. But it's not for me to understand, you know? Not everything is for me. So that's one. That's two. That's a backstab. Okay, great. Very good. Okay. So that is it for this Prospect Town ruin here. However, there's still a couple things that I want to do before we end the walkthrough. And first is actually we're going to come over here. Just check the backside. I believe we got everything, but just want to double check. This was a drop from one of the enemies. Bloodfiend's arm, which is a club. Weapon used by the Bloodfiends, an arm pulled from the corpse of one of their kin and wielded as a makeshift weapon, so it's another Bloodfiend's arm. Having been sanctified by a blood ritual, this armament is capable of spraying blood stored within when executing a strong attack. So, great for bleed builds. Bleed is really strong in the DLC, but you do just want to make sure you have other elements available to you with the affinity system. Because a lot is also quite weak to fire. All right. So let's leave these ruins. And then let's continue along the ridge line. All right. So up here, there's going to be a cemetery. And inside of the cemetery, we're going to have a couple of blood fiends, but more importantly is one of those shadow enemies with the pot on top of their head. And you know what that means. That means fragment. Or ash. It could be either or. But you want to find this enemy. He's in the distance there and kill him as quickly as possible. Perfect. I'm going to get knocked off. So even though these guys are like necromancers and are using Godwin magic, they are not technically undead themselves, so you don't have to worry about killing them twice. All right. So we got ourselves a Scadutree Fragment from that enemy with the pot on its head. Scadutree Fragment. And a Ghost Glovewort. So you're going to find a lot of Glovewort. You're going to find a ton of smithing stones as you go. So don't be afraid to spend them and try new things and level up different spirit ashes and all that. One thing you're also going to want to craft is raisins. You should have had these recipes for a really long time. But raisins are how you heal Torrent without spending flasks. They're basically flasks for Torrent. They do have a pretty long consumption time, though, so just be careful when using them. You hear footsteps. Let me go kill this guy. I'm trying to be careful because there's a Jesus. Yep, that's so good. Trying to be careful because there's one of those ascetic guys back here. Come on, put the raisins on the bar. Where did the raisins go, though? Where are the raisins at? There we go. So yeah, you can... well, I got knocked off, but you can just feed Raisin Torrent. You can feed raisins to Torrent to heal him. And that works in the base game as well. But you never really needed it before now. Okay, so I'm actually looking for a different drop here. Yeah, okay. So we could feed Raisin to Torrent, he gets healed, and then we keep going. Alright, so we're back at the ruins. I'm looking for another drop, though. Oh, it's to the right. Sorry about that. Okay, so there's the Site of Grace that we started at, and then we're going to go this way. So there's where we got the Revered Spirit Ash from that statue. We're going to come through here. Now, you want to be careful in this area because there are rams in this area that can call the lightning, and you don't want to deal with them. So what I recommend doing is when you're in this area, do not mess with any rams. Do not touch them unless you very specifically need a drop from them for some reason. Do not touch them because then you will wake up the parents, and then they will start going absolutely crazy on you. Very careful with respect to the wildlife in this place. So I'm basically just going to run through, but that's them. You don't want to touch them. Okay, we're going to come up here. And then there's actually an artist's shack up here. And inside of this artist shack is a painting. So the painting puzzles return from the base game. There are a few of them. This one is called Incursion. And the solution is actually like right over here. So I'm going to mark this and we'll actually get it next time. But the solution is right here. It's on a little cliff there. But make sure to pick that up this way you don't have to come back here. And then we are going to go down to some other ruins now. What's this bear doing? Okay. So we're going to go down to these, to this cliff over here. And I'm doing this gradually because, again, there's a powerful enemy over here in the form of one of the ascetics. Also got some rats. Oh, lesser rat. I was like, why is this thing killing me while it's dead? Okay, got some more rats. Alright, so now we're going to have a Cursed Blade Ascetic on the other side of this opening. You can actually see him. If you look closely, you can see him on the right there. You can see his blade. So what I recommend doing is actually getting off Torrent. This way he doesn't jump you. And start going to town. So that's a grab right there. That attack is a grab. You got to be very, very careful with that attack because he can very easily jump on you, grab you, and then you're dead. Okay, but that's the Cursed Blade, and this one in particular drops the Cursed Blade Cirque, which is a backhand blade. So it's a circular backhand blade with wave-like cutting edges, sharpened into points that incite blood loss. Long ago, this was employed by the ascetics who strove to become tutelary deities as a ritualistic object in their self-flagellating dances. So basically, what that's saying is these Cursed Blades, they were ascetics, which is sort of like very austere, severe monks, and they were trying to ascend to godhood or like become a tutelary deity, which are like deities for the planet. And the blades would cut them as they would use them. So it's self-flagellating. Love the lore of Souls games. It's so, so good. All right, cool. In this church, which is the Church of Benediction, there is yet another. Oh, this one's a talisman, sorry. This is the Blessed Blue Dew Talisman, which was also kind of missing from the base game, but this slowly restores FP. It's a talisman depicting the blessed boon that is a droplet of the blue luminescent sap of the Erdtree. It was once thought that the blessed sap of the Erdtree would drip from its boughs forever, but that age of plenty swiftly came to a close, and with time, the Erdtree became more an object of faith. So it stopped giving it the goods, and instead just became something to worship. So we also have the Oathseeker set right here, as well as the Pata, which is a fist weapon. It's a weapon comprised of a linear double-sided blade attached to a substantial guard, wielded by the Oathseeker Knights. This versatile armament can be swung about like a fist or used in the manner of a straight sword. This is the Oathseeker armor, very similar to Needle Knight Letta's armor, but it says an Oathseeker Knight helm, black with gold ornamentation. These knights set off on quests of discovery, hoping to find by themselves an oath of their own choosing to serve in perfect, lifelong devotion. So they just went on quests to try to find a purpose. Okay. And then I don't think there's anything up here. No. All right. And so the quickest way out of this place is to just drop down here. And then this should look pretty familiar to you because we are back at the start of Gravesite Plain. And just like that, we've done our first loop around the world, and we've basically covered southern Gravesite Plain. In the next section of the walkthrough, we will begin to cover northern Gravesite Plain. Like I said, I don't want to necessarily go into the Legacy Dungeon until we're like level 4 or 5 with our Scadutree Blessing. So what I might do is I might cross the Elag Bridge and begin exploring this area as well. There's quite a lot there. And you want to try to go into this Legacy Dungeon with as much power as possible. So I think that's what we'll do. We'll do Northern Gravesite Plain. We'll save this for like its own walkthrough. And then we'll probably just begin exploring over here. But the second Legacy Dungeon is right here. This is Castle Ensis. So everything's very tightly packed on this map, and there's a ton to do. But we will leave it there. We're going to leave it at level 179 with a level 3 Scadutree Blessing and a level 1 Revered Spirit Ash Blessing. And yeah, we're still using Rivers of Blood, but we went and got Sacred Blade, which is really helpful for some of the later areas. But we're going to leave it here. Since this is not edited, I always like to give a shout out to my channel members, which I will do so now. Of course, as is tradition, I never have them up when I need them. Okay, I want to give a thank you to John Aldrich with 50 months. That's over 4 years, John. Silver Bullet with 37, just over 3 years. Daniel Cockerill with 32 months. Daniel actually became a channel member around the time that Elden Ring came out, so that's quite nice of you, Daniel. 27 months for Brian Brubaker. Baghdad Money with 23 months, almost 2 years. Greg with 21 months. X-Lightning86 with 16 months. Harv Fontania with 13. Happy 1 year, Harv. Jason Naps with 3 months, and then Working Class Nerds with 29 days. Thank you all so much for the monetary support. I really appreciate it. All right, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment. I'll do my best to help you out. If you're looking for more guides for Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree, please subscribe to the channel so you get alerted when new guides go live. If you're interested in supporting the channel monetarily, please consider becoming a channel member by clicking the join button below this video. You can also leave a super thanks by clicking the heart icon below this video. Don't forget to join my community Discord. The link for that is in the description below. As always, I'll be Johnny Cage. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.